prosecution of felon gangster mafiotic negroidic, the Black Frank Gelada, a gangster judge, therefore unprosecutable, the blackish, menial, negroidic in appearance and demeanor, felon, vicious, parroting puppet, ex-district attorney Nassau County, with no private law experience, detested by all factions, in spite of this, solely because of his many-year secret gangsterization and crucifixion of me, this negroidic, low, mafiotic, deadly Black Frank Gelada was then immediately and unprecedentedly and repeatedly, rapidly promoted in spite of tremendous opposition to the present position of second highest state judgeship solely through gangster computer god manipulation. As additional evidence, during the last week of my within-mentioned month-long, worse-than-a-farce Nazi court criminal trial in Nassau County Court, 1958, where dwarfed-it felon gangster parroting puppet rectum lapper sodomist Judge William Sullivan's ball of fat felon slut wife, she, as planned, sat in the front row, repeatedly stripping her overclothes and completely pulling up her dress and slip and pulling aside her old-fashioned pink bloomers in order to display her anus, her conch. She repeatedly gesticulated and whispered, "I'll give it to you to suck. Finish him." Her husband, dwarfed-it felon gangster parroting puppet rectum lapper sodomist Judge William Sullivan, flushed-faced in repeated open sodomistic displays, stuck out his tongue, wiggling it, chuckling to her. "You hangman rope gangster felon parroting puppet scum on top playboys can watch my Frankenstein eyesight television playback of this felonious lowly sodomistic display by the felon sodomist Judge William Sullivan and his lowly felon slut wife during my trial in Nassau County Court. After my worse-than-Nazi court criminal conviction, crucifixion, for years in poverty I suffered hopeless, jobless, character assassination, and isolation in this low, deadly nigger town. I was the repeat target victim of this gangster government's gangsterization and undetectable extermination attempts to shut me up forever with my secrets. Then, in December 14th to 17th, 1965, I attempted to escape this worst mongrel gangster communist country to return to the Slovenic Polish land of my forefathers. Instead, in a gangster-staged parroting puppet deadly conspiracy, I was flown from Kennedy, New York Airport at night to a small, distant St. Lawrence River estuary, snowbound small airport under the guise that I was in Warsaw, Poland. Immediately, many, many things proved this to me, including the two big white asbestos-shingled hangars with the large Braniff Airways signs on their sidewalls, in addition to the many blurted statements I solicited from the many CIA deadly gangsters, the assassins of me, the many, many parroting puppets all around me. I demanded an immediate flight back to Kennedy, New York Airport. Instead, I was held captive all night, later in chains. I refused both all food and requests I go to sleep. Then CIA police gangsters pretending to be Polish police with no identification beat me bloodily. Later, while my return trip 707 Boeing jet airliner was being serviced for my return trip, I quickly walked into the airplane and saw a CIA gangster with a small electric hairdryer type blower pumping deadly poison nerve gas smoke into secret compartments under the ashtrays in the arms of the chairs, where later I was ordered to sit in the airplane full of CIA underlings, passengers, my assassins, who giggled as they watched me dragged in chains by the airplane by the gangster CIA police gangsters. These deadly gangster CIA passengers, they pressed the frontal panel of the ashtrays in the seat arms to release the deadly poison nerve gas smoke. Indubitably, all of the others deadly CIA underling gangsters aboard this staged return flight, they all had taken the top secret poison nerve gas antidote pill, immuning them from the deadly poison nerve gas smoke. Deadly poison nerve gas smoke was sprayed at me from cigars, cigarettes, and even from ballpoint pens, also from the wig of a woman sitting next to me. Even the Swiss cheese type ice cubes were evaporating into poison nerve gas smoke in all of the free drinks. I got up and went to the rear of the airplane by the rear exit door with a large push-up handle. My Frankenstein brain thoughts broadcasting radio disclosed my intentions. Immediately, the loudspeakers screamed that the flight was over and that our airplane was already preparing to land at Kennedy, New York Airport. You hangman rope sneak gangster playboy scum on top know these facts are true, not only from taking part in such undetectable exterminations, but also you chicanerous, demented, felon, parroting puppet gangsters can watch my Frankenstein eyesight television playback of all these horrible, terrifying, deadly events. When I returned home, Joseph I. Deck, my only brother and deadly felon, murderer, and assassin spy agent against me for this gangster government, he beat me repeatedly, cursing me that I was not exterminated by all of the poison nerve gas smoke, and that I did the impossible in that I kept awake for 3 days and refused all food in order to prevent...
I still remember going to the lake as a child, playing with sparklers, and watching in absolute wonder the rocket's red flare, the bombs bursting in the air, and feeling so much pride in this land of my family and gratitude for the freedom that had been handed down to me. because I loved my country, and I was a good boy. I remember pledging my allegiance to the Stars and Stripes, the red, white, and blue flag of my ancestors' home, the republic for which it stood, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all, because I loved my country, and I was a good boy. When I turned 18, I didn't fear fulfilling my obligation to my people by signing up for the draft as my mother cried quietly, memories of wars that had destroyed people close to her still fresh in her mind. But I felt pride, because I loved my country, and I was a good boy. When I watched the towers in New York fall, live on television in my living room, I was transfixed by the images. I was frozen, unable to even call into my place of employment to explain my absence. I watched in horror, and I cried, because I loved my country, and I was a good boy. When I saw the troops in Baghdad tearing down the statue of Saddam, I cursed his name, and I smiled a bitter smile, because I loved my country, and I was a good boy. Later, when friends of mine began coming back from the Middle East in caskets, I went to their funerals. I cried with their mothers, and I marveled at their bravery, because I loved my country. I was a good boy. When Obama was elected president, and I knew he was a communist, with the desire to transform my country, to remake it in his image. I didn't riot in the streets because I had faith in democracy. I told myself there was nothing he could do that couldn't be undone through peaceful means, because I loved my country, and I was a good boy. I wanted to preserve the freedoms that were my responsibility to safeguard for my children. I moved to our nation's capital, and I worked tirelessly to inform people of the importance of free speech and liberty, because I loved my country, and I was a good boy. When I first began to notice that the newcomers to the country I loved so much seemed resistant to the ideals of my forefathers, I told myself that it was my responsibility to explain it in a way that they could understand. America wasn't a people, after all. It was a set of ideas. When nobody seemed to listen and our freedoms continued to evaporate, I kept faith that we just needed to be patient and do better. I shoved down that voice within that suggested that maybe these people weren't people that wanted the same thing and just had misguided ways of achieving these shared goals that I had. But maybe they wanted something else entirely. But I quieted that voice because I loved my country, and I was a good boy. And when I began to realize that conservatives had failed to conserve anything, from the lives of millions of unborn children to the sanctity of marriage and the security of our borders, I soldiered on, because they were the lesser of two evils, and I loved my country. I was a good boy. When it looked as though my country was in danger of being ruled over by a woman who I knew shouldn't even be walking the streets, that mobs of these new Americans that had no intention of preserving what my blood had built, but instead wished to suck that blood like parasites until they grew fat and unruly and then angry and jealous of my pedigree and birthright, feverishly seeking to erase my heritage. I continued to have faith. People would see that things had gone awry, They had gone too far. If the ship capsized, we would all drown. And I loved my country. And I was a good boy. When a strong man appeared out of the chaos and told me that he understood and shared my terror.
That's what it is.
When he made big promises that if we made the impossible happen, if we focused all of our time and energy into giving him the power to roll things back, that he would make America great again. That if I could only endure this ridicule, the social and economic consequences of supporting our shared vision to save this nation for the first time in my lifetime, we as a people would finally be putting America first. The rest of the world would no longer be our burden to carry on our backs into prosperity. This suicidal parasitism would end. I put everything I had into ensuring that these promises could be fulfilled, to the point of recklessness and personal ruin, because I loved my country, and I was a good boy. And now, as I begin to see for the first time in my life how the world really works, an awakening that's not limited just to me, no.
States and Israel has never
Patriots everywhere
been stronger.
who made this same bargain, who are now also beginning to understand with a sinking feeling, standing alone on the frozen tundra of lies and deception, having thrown everything that was theirs into the furnace that needed perpetual feeding to make this impossible dream, the American dream, a reality. Believing that this time it would be different because they had to believe. Standing there naked and shivering as the sun slowly set on a nation that no longer existed. But they hoped they could resuscitate it or raise it from the dead like the God this country has forgotten, whose name is printed on every coin in the land, and what once seemed like a tribute, but now a symbol of mockery, for this currency has no value. And it's this God who is blasphemed on the instruments of our slavery that we whisper our sins to and ask for strength in this desperate time, as we wonder, will it take another flood to purge the virus that saturates the world, and make a sacred promise that we are willing to ride those waves because we love our country and we are dangerous men.
This country was founded by dangerous men.
Amen.
And the moment the people in this country cease to be dangerous men, it's going to be the day we cease to have a country.
Hello! Oop, I gotta close this window apparently. There we go. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Got a little smaller crowd, I guess, in chat today because of the Trovo thing, I'm assuming. Or maybe you guys are just getting tired of me. Drinking my coffee. It's nothing special. I don't even think it has a brand. It's certainly not fair trade. How you guys doing? On the countdown today, let's take a look here. Oh, did I finally close the window? No, I didn't. On the Trump countdown, officially, the time of Trump, MAGA country, officially ends in 2 days, 9 hours, 8 minutes, and 11 seconds. And that is why we have the military occupying the great city of D.C., the District of Columbia, to protect the ruling class from the vile insurrectionists like this man here.
Fucking hey, man.
Glad to see you guys. You guys are fucking patriots. Look at this guy. He's got covered in blood. God bless you.
Yes.
You good, sir? Do you need medical attention?
I'm good, thank you.
All right.
I got shot in the face. Where are they? I got shot in the face with some kind of plastic bullet.
Any chance I could get you guys to leave the Senate wing?
We will. I've been making sure they ain't disrespecting the place.
Okay, just want to let you guys know this is like the sacredest place.
I know.
Hey! Fucking hey, man. Glad to see you guys. You guys are fucking patriots. Look at this guy. He's got covered in blood.
So as you can see, that was the violent insurrection. That was the violent insurrection that took place in D.C. Hey, dude, whoa. Crazy. I got shot in the face. Don't worry, dude. I'm making sure no one's disrespecting the place. That sounds terrible. They barely escaped with their lives. Barely escaped with their lives. And now, of course, we're hearing that Trump is going to pardon nearly 100 of his buddies, none of whom will be the ones that were featured in that video we just saw, who were all facing federal charges, and will most certainly do prison time, because they were doing exactly what they thought Trump wanted them to do. And, you know, they would know that Trump didn't want them to do that if Trump had just simply done exactly what he said he was going to do and gone along to the Capitol with them. I mean, he said that in the speech. He said, don't worry, let's go down to the Capitol. We're going to march down to the Capitol, and I'm going to be with you. And then he went and hid in a bunker or something. I don't know. But he wasn't down at the Capitol. And then when the violent insurrectionists got inside the Capitol, they kind of just looked like tourists. In fact, I think there was a time, not that long ago, where tourists could just walk in there. Because after all, this is a building that belongs to them. Is it not? Yesterday I said something about if Trump had just listened to the advice that all bosses should give, that you should never overpromise and underdeliver, but always the other way around. Always underpromise and overdeliver. It's not just that that's good advice from your boss. It's just that we're his boss. People keep forgetting that these people work for us. And I can understand why you would forget that if you saw the militarized zone that D.C. has become. I was actually talking to someone today who had no idea that there were 25,000 troops inside of the Capitol right now. 25, to give you some idea as to how many that is. That's over 10 times the amount of people that are in Afghanistan. Afghanistan has approximately 2,000 troops. So Washington, D.C. has over 10 times the number of troops as a country that we're technically still at war with in Afghanistan. Kind of makes you think. So I hope everyone here is following me on Telegram, on BitChute, which is going a little slow. It took pretty much all day today for last night's Insomnia stream to process. On the bright side, turns out, and I didn't know this because these don't pop up right away, on Trovo, you do have replays, and I'm not sure how long those stay up, but it was there. Not immediately after the show, but a little bit afterwards. So they will pop up there. I also played around a little bit with the interface today, and I changed some of the I guess on chat, you can make it to where you can't chat until you've followed the channel for over 10 minutes. And I figured that would be good, so you couldn't just get someone to hop on real quick and be obnoxious. Hopefully that's not affecting any of you guys. If it is, you have to wait 10 minutes. Not a big deal. And I'll probably streamline some more stuff as we go on. Today, apparently word has gotten out. I talked about how yesterday, how on Reddit, there were ham radio people freaking out. Like, oh my God, they're going to get us deplatformed from ham radio. They're going to take away ham radio. And then today, today this happened. This is, the FCC apparently is very concerned as well. Warning! Amateur and personal radio services, licensees, and operators may not use radio equipment to commit or facilitate criminal acts. No one was suggesting that. No one was suggesting that. The Enforcement Bureau of the FCC issues this enforcement advisory to remind licensees in the amateur radio service, as well as licensees and operators in the personal radio services, that the Commission prohibits the use of radios in those services to commit or facilitate criminal acts. Kind of goes without saying, right? I think that's true of phones, right? Like if you use the phone to commit a crime, I mean, you're committing a crime. It doesn't matter if you're doing it with a phone or with a radio or with smoke signals. If you're committing a crime, it's a crime. The Bureau has become aware of discussion on social media platforms suggesting that certain radio services regulated by the Commission may be an alternative to social media platforms for groups to communicate and coordinate future activities. Okay, that's not crimes. The Bureau recognizes that these services can be used for a wide range of permitted purposes, including speech that is protected under the First Amendment of the Constitution. Uh-oh. And then in all bold, amateur and personal radio services, however, may not be used to commit or facilitate crimes. Yes, no shit, dude. No fucking shit. But apparently we have frightened the radio gods with our talk of ham radio. So that's kind of funny. I was very amused by that. Speaking of the onslaught on communications, there is some... I talked about this, as soon as people started going over to Telegram, I said, look, they're going to go after Telegram. That's just going to happen now. This doesn't just stop at one platform. They're going to chase us from platform to platform. As one person said, they're going to ban us from 109 platforms before it's over. And sure enough, they are going after Telegram. Now, Telegram had the advantage of saying, well, we're not really a social media platform. We are, in fact, a messaging app. And so if you go after us, then you're going to have to go after, text messaging services and all that other stuff, because it's going to be essentially the same. And I said that it's going to be like a gateway drug. Because if they're able to go after Telegram successfully, that's precisely what they'll do. Well, wouldn't you know it? Wouldn't you know it? There's a gentleman. Let me get a little screenshot of this guy here. The gentleman by the name of Mark Ginzberg. Mark Ginzberg. Something about that name. Mark Ginzberg. Let me bring up his picture here. It's taking more clicks and whatnot than I had hoped. Come on, here we go. A few more clicks. We're almost there. Almost there. There we go. There's Mark Ginzberg. Mark Ginzberg has decided to sue Apple because apparently the crushing, censorious forces of Apple and Google left to their own devices is not fast enough for Mr. Ginzberg. He is not pleased with how slow they are at banning people from platforms. So he has taken matters into his own hands, and he is going to sue Apple. Well, he's already started. He's suing Apple for not removing Telegram over what he calls violent content and hate groups. So I'm going to read. This is from the Apple Insider. Apple is being sued by the Coalition for a Safer Web for failing to remove access to Telegram while still blocking Parler, and also alleging it is being used by hate groups and extremists to attack the Capitol. Filed on Sunday at the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California, the lawsuit from Ambassador Mark Ginzberg. He's an ambassador? I'm going to have to look this up. Ambassador Mark Ginzberg. Is that just something he calls himself? That would be not surprising. Mark Ginzberg. Oh no, he actually was an ambassador. He worked for Clinton, surprise, surprise. And he was an ambassador to Morocco. So he was an ambassador. I guess now we have to call him ambassador forever. Ambassador Mark Ginzberg and the Coalition for a Safer Web charges Apple with allowing Telegram to be available in the App Store. This, quote, despite Apple's knowledge that Telegram is being used to intimidate, threaten, and coerce members of the public. Is it now? How exactly is that taking place? How is that? First of all, Telegram's not exactly the public square. Certainly not in the same way that Facebook and these other places are. It's an app that you have to get. I don't even think you can I mean, you can sort of access the posts online, but not in every case. And yet, it's being used to intimidate, threaten, and coerce members of the public. Billed as a nonpartisan, not-for-profit advocacy organization to force the removal of extremists and terrorist content from social media platforms, the coalition claims Apple is failing to follow its own policies and guidelines regarding app content in relation to Telegram. In doing so, Apple allows Telegram's more malicious users to continue their activities. The lawsuit arrives at the end of a week where Apple, Google, Amazon, and others cut ties to Parler for failing to manage the content in the app generated by its users. The app was alleged to be used to plan and coordinate illegal activities in Washington, D.C., including storming the Capitol. By the way, proven to be 100% false. 100% false. It was not used at all. And look, I am no fan of Parler. Not a fan of Parler. Parler was, I think, in many ways, a honeypot. And I think that because of the Parler leak, there's a lot of bad actors that have a lot of information on a lot of well-meaning, if misguided, patriots. But that said, it wasn't used to coordinate illegal activities in Washington, D.C., including storming the U.S. Capitol, okay? In effect, the lawsuit is pressuring Apple into closely examining Telegram with a view to deplatforming the encrypted messaging app for allegedly performing similar activities. According to a CSW press release from June, so they've been trying to do this for a while, I guess. From June 2020, cited by the lawsuit, Telegram is being used as a communications channel for the Russian government. It's those damn fucking Russians. They just never quit. And affiliated neo-Nazi and white nationalist groups, sowing misinformation and racial division in the United States and in Europe. You ever think, Mr. Ginzberg, you ever think to yourself, maybe there's another group responsible for sowing misinformation and racial division in the United States and in Europe? You ever think maybe what you're doing right now, like what you're in the process of doing right now, that you're spending millions of dollars that people like me don't have access to, maybe that is sowing misinformation and racial division in the United States and in Europe. You think maybe that might be a bigger problem than what Telegram is doing? Masters of projection. Ginzberg also wrote to Apple CEO Tim Cook on behalf of the CSW in July, asking for Telegram to be temporarily deplatformed due to its role in inciting extremist violence. I'm telling you guys, it's going to phones. It's going to go to phones, and you know what? It might very well go to ham radio. They might very well get rid of the ham bands through all this. They cannot allow communication that they don't control. They can't allow it. There is also the accusation that anti-black and anti-Semitic groups have openly utilized Telegram with little or no content moderation by Telegram's management. Well, I'll tell you what, Mr. Ginzberg, it's a messaging app. I wouldn't want Telegram's management to be moderating the content of messages. Are you suggesting that companies like Verizon and T-Mobile and AT&T should be moderating the content of text messages? You might not be saying that right now, but I'm sure once this domino falls, that's precisely the next one that you'll be working on. Despite the CSW's warnings and the media reports about the app, Apple has not taken any action against Telegram comparable to the action it has taken against Parler to compel Telegram to improve its content moderation policies. And time will tell. We'll see if they do. I've suspected that they will, and I think that that's 100% likely. The suit also alleges Telegram is being used to coordinate and incite extreme violence before the inauguration of President-elect Joe Biden. Some users have called on followers to abandon plans for a second protest in Washington in favor of surprise attacks nationwide, the filing claims. Here's the thing. All right, if that was real, let's just say it was real. I'm assuming that means that Mr. Ginzberg here has evidence of such claims, right? If he's alleging that Telegram is being used to plan these surprise attacks, either he's just pulling that out of his imagination, we'll say, or he's seen proof of this. If I was law enforcement, I would prefer to keep Telegram up if I knew about channels like this and I had access to them. I mean, someone does. Or how are you making this claim? How are you making the claim that this is taking place on the app if you're not able to see it? So clearly you have access. You've seen these messages. And if that's the case and you're law enforcement, you would want it to continue. Because you'd have a clear view of what these insurrectionists were up to, right? The last thing you'd want to do is get rid of it because you would have access to all their plans right there. You know, I suspect where we're headed ultimately is a lot of more authoritarian countries ban encryption just in general. So on Telegram, one of the features that I suggest you use, you know, as long as we have it, I guess, is the end-to-end encryption that you have just between two private parties, right? Now, that does not guarantee at all, and I've said this 1,000 times, that someone else isn't reading your messages, because there are lots of exploits that'll be in the operating systems of phones and of just desktops and everything else. So even if the traffic is encrypted between the two different apps, it doesn't really matter if one of the apps on either side of that connection has been owned, and or one of those devices has been owned, and whoever it is that has owned it can just look at the screen and read what you've had, or even have a keylogger So they see what you're typing, whether it's in Telegram or it doesn't matter where you're typing. They'll always see what you're typing. So it's the idea that it's bulletproof is just wrong. Now, if you know what you're doing with security, there's a lot of things you can do to kind of mitigate this. But as I've said before, too, there's things we don't even know about, and there's hardware backdoors, and especially in phones, I would suspect a lot of that stuff has backdoors. So when you're talking online, generally speaking, you should just always assume that the likelihood that someone else can see it. So it's not just in open forums that you shouldn't be fed posting and stuff like that. You should just always assume, no matter what app, whether it's Telegram or what have you, that's something that someone else can see. And moreover, if you're talking to someone that you don't know in real life, or even if you do know in real life, I mean, who's to say that you're talking to someone who is going to respect that privacy or just be someone that you can trust? So they are going to go after Telegram. They're Mr. Ginzberg here. I find it hilarious and predictable. You know, if you don't laugh, you're going to cry. That Mr. Ginzberg is who he is, and that he's the one that's behind all the censorship. Because it just goes to further reinforce what people say about people like Mr. Ginzberg. I mean, I can't imagine. It's happening again. Oh God, it's happening again. They all hate us again. What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? I can't. It's for no reason. This always happens. They start just hating us for no reason. Every fucking time. It's getting boring. It's getting boring. So that's going on. Another thing that I caught. So last night in the stream, I mentioned that I thought that Steve Pachetnik had been using Alex Jones and suggested that perhaps this coup that he was saying Alex had helped him facilitate might not be the coup that the Q people are praying for, but rather the one that we just see unfolding on live television, or well, I guess not on television so much as on Telegram. And after the stream, someone sent me, I guess Alex did a emergency broadcast Saturday night, and it was actually prior to my stream, so I don't think it's because he saw my stream, but it sounds as if his head might be going to the same place. And actually, the first part of that stream was actually pretty okay, and then he invited some Q nonsense guy on there, and I was just like, "Come on, dude!" Like, just when I was starting to think that maybe you were starting to. Anyway. Yeah, there's a lot of people that I'll tell you what. A lot of people are starting to figure out how damaging Q is. And a lot of people are starting to hammer this into the heads of the Q-tards, and I'm starting to be a little more optimistic. It's no longer just me screaming into the void that is the inside of the skull of a Q-tard. It's not just me for like years now going, "This is fake and gay. Stop following this. Oh my God." I don't think you guys understand. Like, for years I've been doing this. And not even just like on the public space, but privately to people. I've been like, dude, come on. And I saw a stream, or I didn't watch the whole stream, but I saw part of a stream that Anomaly, who I don't know him. I really don't know him. But I know that his audience is a little more, I don't want to say they're a little more normie, but they're kind of a little more normie. And he was pushing really hard against Q and actually talking big about Bill Cooper. And I was like, oh, that's perhaps Anomaly is watching the show. I don't know. but he was talking about Bill Cooper's book, Behold a Pale Horse? Good book, by the way. Highly recommend grabbing a copy of that. The audiobook, he reads himself, so it's in his own words. Highly recommend checking that out. I got both. You can find it free online, but like I said, he did not survive that attack on his home all those years ago, and I would prefer that you pay so that his family gets at least a little bit of coinage from that. I'm not positive that that's where it's going, but I would assume. He does have, well, they're probably not small children anymore, but they were at the time. He does have children and a wife. So, if you want to check that out, that is available in all kinds of different places. It's definitely, again, with Bill Cooper, he kind of misses the mark in a few places, but a lot of it's pretty good. In fact, there's a lot of that stuff. When you go back and look at these guys, I don't know what to call it. I guess they call it the Patriot movement, so we'll just call it the Patriot movement. But a lot of them in the past, they got a lot of stuff right, but they also got a lot of stuff wrong. And so it gives me pause, and that's why I try to be as careful as possible about making crazy assumptions about stuff, because I know that in 30 years I might sound like a retard. And I don't want, not that I don't want to, oh no, I sound like not that I don't want to sound like a retard. Well, I guess I don't want to sound like a retard, but I don't want to be giving you guys bad information. One book in particular, I think it's called Pawns in the Game. Pawns in the Game. Pawns in the Game. Let me look that one up. I think that's the name of it. It was a little bit of a white pill and a little bit of a black pill. Pawns in the Game. Why did that not search for the whole term there? Pawns in the Game. There we go. This is a book that you can find pretty much everywhere. It was written by William Guy Carr. In fact, look, I just did a search and a PDF of the whole book just popped right up. But you can get that on audiobook too. This guy wrote Pawns in the Game in 1958. 1958. And it's eerie to hear some of the same things that we're worried about first starting to creep up in 1958. And one of the black pills, I guess, that I associate with this book, and not that, and look, it's the same thing with Bill Cooper. The information's about, I'd say it's about 60% there. He misses the mark in a lot of places. Still worth the read. But at the end of the book, and again, this was in 1958, he says to the readers of the book, we can beat this. And the way we can beat this is we can start up patriot clubs all around the country. You got to remember, 1958, things weren't that bad yet. I mean, considering, compared to today, 1958 must have felt like you still had some time, right? And he was like, we can create these groups, these patriot groups, and, make these clubs around. And again, this is before the internet. But really, this is before, like we talked about, how Bill Cooper leveraged radio. This is before, there was ham radio, but this is before you could even do radio in the way that Bill Cooper was doing it. But he said, we'll make these groups, and we'll have like book clubs kind of in these groups, and we'll have newsletters, and we'll be able to fight this by bypassing the media through these clubs that we'll have all around the country. And we'll eventually, hopefully, get enough people together to where we'll have some political power. And I forget the name of the group. Well, hell, I'll just look it up. I guess I've got the PDF of the entire book right here, right? So this might kill my internet. Hopefully it doesn't destroy the stream. So, I guess this isn't the entire book. Anyway, he talks about this group, and I'm listening to the audiobook, and I'm thinking to myself, well, not only did that fail, I've never even heard of this group. So in a way, it failed spectacularly. Like, you know, it just did. And I think that that's something that people need to come to grips with, is when you're up against, it's not that like we don't have the ability to organize and we can't do things on a small scale, but your opponent has literally trillions of dollars to work with. Trillions of dollars. And that's reflected not just in, obviously, when you see them busing BLM and Antifa people to protest, well, and to the polls, but it's not even just that. It's just all the nonprofits, like Mr. Ginzberg here, you know, Ambassador Ginzberg. I mean, how much do you think he gets paid to sue Telegram? How much do you think an ex-ambassador gets paid? We don't have anything even remotely like that. And this is just one of thousands of organizations, a spider web of organizations that all act in unison to destroy us. And they can pay these people to work around the clock. They don't have to rely on some guy in the desert who's living off of fucking nothing and just doing this because he's a true believer. They can just pay people to be believers. They've got the money to do it. They print the money. They'll never run out of it. And so it's foolish and it's naive to think that you can somehow organize your way out of this. You'll never be able to organize your way out of this. You know, people making a big deal out of Nick getting, what was it, like $500,000 or something? I don't know. It depends on what the price of Bitcoin is right now, right? I mean, it was a big lump of money. Honestly, in the big scheme of things, that's fucking nothing. That's nothing. It's probably less than what Mr. Ginzberg here makes in a year. Probably less. And he's someone you've never even heard of. He's just like some tiny piece of this enormous machine. And we get all excited because one guy got like $500,000. It's literally nothing. No, don't get me wrong. I wish someone had sent me that $500,000, right? And I hope he puts it to work, right? But in the big scheme of things, that's nothing. It's nothing. The richest, not richest man, all of the richest men in the world are against people like you and me. And as we've seen, these corporations, these I think, doesn't Apple have over, I think they've got like $2 trillion just sitting in a bank somewhere? I think that's it might be more than that. They're sitting on a giant ball of cash. These companies have the resources and the abilities. These bankers who print the money, and even if they run out of it, they can bail themselves out with more printed money or your money. They can confiscate your money from your paycheck and just put it in their wallets. They will never run out of resources, and they will never grow tired. This system is not something that you can subvert, that you can change, that you can teach. That video I played before going live here, I recorded that in I think in 2019. So roughly about 2 years ago, maybe a little less. And I was trying to communicate in that video that we all kind of have, I think, that same evolution, right? We're all good guys. We're all very, I'm thinking a lot of you guys probably are. We're just nice, likable guys. We're not hateful people. We don't want to dominate other people. By and large, we want to just kind of be left alone. But more than that, we want a government that represents us and works for us. And right now we have a government that doesn't represent us and works against us. And that's a realization that takes a long time to get over, because when you're young and you're lapping up that propaganda, you're watching the fireworks explode, you're pledging allegiance to the flag, you're all about it. You're a team player. You're like, yeah, America, fuck yeah, I like this place. But then little by little, as you get older and you start to see that, oh shit, half of this is a smokescreen. Half of this is a mirage. It's a hologram. And it exists so that I don't see how this country is really structured. And that I don't understand that they just revamped how slavery worked. And made it so that, well, if we treat the slaves a little bit nicer, dangle some carrots in front of them, say, look, you could be the alpha slave. You too could maybe one day, if you work hard enough, instead of flipping the burgers, you could be the manager. If you're the manager, we'll give you health care, maybe some stock options. You could afford those Sea-Doos you've always wanted, right? You can get like a toy hauler and stick some ATVs in there, and you can have a McMansion with a huge mortgage that you'll never pay off. And if you do, it'll be just in time for you to die. You know what mortgage means? Think about Latin and think of the word mortgage. Think of the word morgue, mortuary. The word mortgage literally means death agreement. It means you're not paying this off until you're dead. It means slavery. It means you are in debt to a banker that only had the money because he was born with the money, and you have to borrow it from him to afford a place to just live and raise your kids. Of course, that's not 100% true. You can get around it, but most people, you're told, this is normal. This is normal. It's just as normal as student debt, which might as well also be a mortgage, right? This is totally normal, guys. First, the first thing you do after you go to government schools, where you don't learn anything other than how evil white people are and that sort of a thing. Once you're out of government schools, you're trained to respond to bells. Once you're out of government schools, the first thing you do is you go to the banking class and you say, please, sir, can I have some shillings for my education? Can I, please? And they give you the money that, again, they only have because they were born with it. They didn't earn that money. They were born with it. That's it. And so because they're part of this class that just has money, like that's their job in the society. What's your job? I have money. Oh, how do you get into that? Well, you kind of have to be born into it. Oh, okay. So you borrow the money, and then you go to more classes that tell you how evil white people are for a while. And then when you get out of it, you go work for one of these companies that is either run by one of these same billionaires or owned by one of these billionaires. And as they collect interest on that loan, they pay you some of it back. They pay you some of it back every month so you can pay it back to them. And then you borrow more money for a car. And then you borrow more money for a house. And so forth. And then it's slavery. You're just constantly paying them the money that then they give you some of it back. And maybe if you're lucky, by the time that you're too old to be useful to the system anyway, or to enjoy life for that matter, maybe you can downsize. Maybe you've built up some equity. You can sell off all your stuff. Hopefully Social Security is still going, which, probably not. And you live in some small apartment, maybe get an RV, and then just die. And then that's it. That's it. This first occurred to me. The generational wealth thing really hit home for the first time when I first moved. Well, I started to figure it out when I lived in DC and I was working for people who just weren't talented. And they were younger and they were real young and too young for the positions they had. And they had tons of money and they ran these organizations. And I was thinking to myself, how did these guys get these jobs? It wasn't just me. There was a few of their employees that could run circles around these guys. And then you start to realize, it's just very incestuous. These people all come from money. And because daddy has tons of money, your job is to manage some of daddy's money in a nonprofit. And you just literally show up and smoke pot in the office. Like some of these guys, for real. They just would drink and smoke pot in the office while, dickheads like me would do all the work. And that's their life. That's their job. And then when I moved to San Francisco, it was the same sort of a thing. The guy that I went there to go work for, who ended up screwing me out of a lot of money, and I think you can guess his ethnicity, same thing. He had money. He had a company. And I was like, wow, that's awesome that you built up this company from nothing. Yeah, it turns out he didn't. Turns out his dad was very wealthy. In fact, his dad was governor of a state. And that he had very much enjoyed the nepotism that's related to that in his lifetime. And that had been how he was able to create a company in a place like San Francisco. And I was like, that's kind of a bummer. And then it really hit me is I lived in this really shitty apartment. I don't know if you guys know about rent in San Francisco. It's insane. And again, it's you get paid a lot, but because you got to remember this whole wage slave system, it really is slavery. So if you're getting paid a lot, they just charge you a lot. So you're never ever able to get ahead. So even though I was making okay money, it wasn't even really as much as I should have been making, but I had some freedoms that I thought were worth it. My rent was insane. I mean, it was something like, it was over $4,000 a month for a one bedroom. A one bedroom. Not a roomy one bedroom. A small one bedroom apartment. And it was over $4,000 a month. And there was utilities and all that stuff. That was just the rent. So wrap your head around that one. And the landlord was this old Jewish guy. And he drove a Maserati. And the way that he had, the way he made money, it was very similar to the banks, except for him, it was property. He owned a bunch of property all up and down the West Coast. And these were not nice properties, okay? My walls were so thin I could literally hear not just my neighbors talking on the phone, I could hear what they were saying on the phone. Like the walls were that thin. And the building itself was probably like 150 years old, and it was just a total piece of shit. And this guy, he was a slumlord, but it was like a high-end slumlord, right? So he owned slums in like really expensive parts of California. And so his job was, he owned property. And every month, people paid him enough money to where he could afford a Maserati for owning property. And one day, he died. And his daughter came and said, well, now I'm going to be the one collecting the rent. And I realized she is now independently wealthy simply because she was born. She was born with all these properties. She didn't do anything to get those properties. I don't know. Her dad probably didn't either, but I don't know that. Maybe he somehow, I don't know. I don't know his story, but I know her story. And her story was, you're born, your dad's rich enough to have a Maserati, so you're probably doing okay. And then when he kicks off, all that property is yours. You didn't do anything to get it. And all these wage slaves that live in your properties pay you, in my case, over $4,000 a month every month for you to do minimal maintenance to these slums. Excuse me. And that's when I realized the system's fucked. Because this is just one tiny example. One tiny example where it's affecting me directly. Where I'm faced with this cunty rich woman who did nothing to earn the majority of my salary every month. But because she was born, I have to give her the majority of my salary every month. Now, I know there's a lot of people that are making fun of the leftists that are saying, oh, cancel rent, cancel rent, cancel rent. But I have a little bit of sympathy for them, especially if they're, if you're out of a job because the government shut down your job, I can relate to that. I can definitely relate to that. Speaking of COVID, there's a funny new development. You see, COVID has gotten a lot more powerful lately. It's a lot scarier. You thought it was enough to just wear a mask. You thought you'd be safe by wearing a mask. Well, you were wrong, my friend. You were wrong. I'm going to show you this this breaking news story that'll tell you exactly how safe you're not with that mask of yours.
With COVID cases soaring, experts warn it's time to double down, as in time to start wearing a double mask. President-elect Joe Biden does it. Mitt Romney double masked during the Capitol insurrection. Tom Cruise also double masks.
It essentially blocks between 90 and 95% of all viral particles.
Infectious disease specialist Dr. Monica Gandhi shows us the simple steps you can take.
Actually putting the cloth mask first and then putting the surgical mask on top of it. All the electrostatic repulsion from here and then like different fibers going different ways. You've just made this an N95 right here.
With COVID cases soaring, experts
You hear that?
it's time to double down.
You guys need 2 masks now. One mask is not enough. You must wear 2. One mask is so 2020. Come on, man. Come on, man. You gotta have 2 masks now. I think that you guys should just get ahead of the game and start wearing 3 masks. You know, that's what's gonna be next. Because what could be safer than 3 masks? Because she said it wasn't 100%. It was only like 96% that it blocks if you wear the 2 masks. So if you add that extra mask, you're going to maybe get up to 100. You'll maybe get up to 100. Yeah, the COVID nightmare. The COVID nightmare that never wants to end. Someone in chat says, full bloody hazmat suits for the win. You know what's funny? I actually have some of those. Not because of COVID, but because Carl's house is full of hantavirus. So, in fact, when all this hit, I had all these N95 masks and those suits because of the, and rubber gloves and stuff because of Carl's house. And I was like, oh, and this is before I knew if it was fake or not. So I was like, oh shit, well, if it actually turns into like zombie apocalypse, I'm good to go. And then, you know, especially because the masks suddenly like skyrocketed in price and you couldn't find them anywhere anyway. And I had a couple boxes of them. I should have scalped them. I might have been able to make some money. All right, take a look at chat here. Cancel Mob will just follow us everywhere. Oh, I think that's Raging Humanist there. Or it's a fan of his because he's got the icon. This is true. They will follow us everywhere. They'll follow us on the Telegram. They'll follow us on the ham radio, if that's what it comes down to. Devin, can't believe this leaf wanted to move to the States as much as I hate Trudeau. I'll stay here. I don't know anything about Canada so much. I've only been there once, and it was super gay. It was I'll tell you, it was very clean, and it was shockingly modern. What city did I go to? It was the one. It was the one that they had the Olympics at one point, and it's just north of Washington State, on the other side of the water. Anyway, not Halifax. It was Vancouver. That's what it was. Very clean. At least the part that I was in, it was very shockingly clean. I went there from San Francisco, so I guess that's probably a big part of it. In San Francisco, there's literal shit just on the sidewalk everywhere. And then I go to Vancouver, and I was like, wow, this place looks very nice and clean. This is kind of weird. Massive gay part of town. Or maybe it was just like some kind of gay pride thing. There's like fucking gay flags everywhere. But we had a pretty nice hotel. We stayed at, in fact, I saw Heather Graham was staying at our hotel for some reason. I think she was shooting a movie or something like that. But yeah, I wasn't there for long. It just, my impression was, wow, it's super gay here. There's gay flags everywhere. All of our waiters seem to be very gay. Vancouver was the first place I'd ever been where they locked the gas stations at night. I don't know what you mean by that. Did you see that they just released a remake of Stephen King's The Stand on TV? First episode came out in December. Interesting timing for them to do that. I'd like to see how woke they made The Stand. It was already pretty woke because it was Stephen King and it includes the character. Stephen King has been the king of adding the virtuous, godlike black character, where there's like some wise black man or black woman that somehow has all the answers to all the the universe's problems. And if I remember correctly, they had a mini series of The Stand in either the 80s or the 90s. My parents rented it at one point back when there was video stores, so it's been a long time. And we watched it, and it had this, old black woman on a farm front porch in a rocking chair, and she was somehow telepathically communicating with people. It's been a long time. I think I read the book a few years after that, but it's been a really super long time. But yeah, I'm sure they've made it even worse. Stephen King blocked you on Facebook. That's pretty good. He's a massive pedo. I don't know if you've ever read, speaking of new Stephen King properties that are being worked on right now, It, the clown. I'm sure you guys are familiar with It. The book It has a little kid orgy that saves the day, by the way. It's not even just that there's a little kid orgy. It's that by performing the orgy, these children destroy it. That's a big part of that story that gets left out. I don't know if you guys know that or not. In fact, I made a meme about this years ago. Let me see if I can pull that up. Oh, no, I can't, because I don't have that folder on. It's on another computer. But yeah, it's Stephen King's It. In order to defeat the evil clown, they have like this magical little kid orgy where all the little boys fuck. I mean, have you guys seen the I don't know if you've seen the movie, you know, it's like the characters, there's like a bunch of little boys and then like a little girl. In the book, all the little boys fuck the little girl in this weird magical space orgy thing, and that destroys the clown. I'm not making that up. That's really in the book. And now it's a big movie. No one seems to be concerned at all that there's this huge pedo scene in the book. Well, I used to read a lot of Stephen King, but I stopped reading when I got to It. I stopped because I got tired of his writing, but I didn't get that far. Well, here's the thing. His writing's not even that good. His writing is literally the same every time. It's like it's build up, mysterious, bad, evil thing. Build up, mysterious, bad, evil thing. And at the end, oh no, what is it? Oh, it's a big evil monster or an alien. Like there's never any payoff. There's literally never any payoff. There's no like twist at the end. There's no M. Night Shyamalan, blah, blah, blah. Like it's always just build up, scary, evil, creepy. Oh, in the end, it's just a monster. It's more of a letdown than the end of a Scooby-Doo episode. Oh, it's Old Man Jenkins. And I would have gotten away with it too. Antifa uses a screenshot of me holding Day of the Rope as proof I'm a Nazi, doxed my house, threatened my kids and wife. Well, I apologize if my book did any of that, but yeah, I never imagined. I don't know. I knew that they would ban the book at some point. I didn't think that they would ban it before they ban. There's so many other books that are way more violent than my book, and I guess I'm a little proud of it. I'm a little proud that my book was banned for that reason. And yes, before you ask, book 2 will be coming out once I can focus on stuff other than what's going on. I'm really looking forward to the 21st because I'm going to sleep for an entire day. I'm going to sleep for an entire day and not think about politics, not even log in. Of course, that'll be the day, right, that the 21st, that'll be the day that Biden releases the stormtroopers, the commie stormtroopers onto the insurrectionists. Was a good book. No spoilers. Yes, no spoilers, please. Keep your streams at night. I need them at work. Yeah, I don't think there's a way around it, honestly. I think that in order for me to have fast internet, I have to wait until night. Part of it is everyone that lives in my area is on the same internet. No matter who you get it from, it's going through the same pipe. And so part of it is I have to wait for everyone to go to bed, but it's also, I think they're just throttling me because I'm using substantially more. In fact, I probably account for half of the bandwidth in this whole area, if not more. And so because in my contract there's nothing really they can do about it, I think they're just fucking me over and putting me at the off-peak hours so that technically I'm still getting unlimited, but it's just throttled down to like 2G during the day. It's unusable. It's unusable during the day. Like even for just browsing, I have a separate internet I have just for watching YouTube videos, and I have to watch those at like the lowest possible thing because the bandwidth on my alternative internet is so slow, I can't even watch BitChute sometimes because BitChute doesn't have those options to dial back the bandwidth at all. Your point on how foundations can be subverted is spot on. Disney and Ford were based men who'd be rolling over in their graves if they knew what happened to their companies. Yeah, the Ford Foundation is a perfect example. Henry Ford would be appalled if he knew what his big ball of money was up to these days. But it's also a testament. It's like I said, it's impossible. Not only is it impossible to go broke, your family will have money for eternity if you get that big ball of money going, but you can have immortal children in the form of foundations. And so like Soros, we talked about Soros the other day. Yeah, when he dies, it doesn't go away because there's Alex Soros, but there's also the Soros Foundation. There's all these other little foundations. Look, the same thing goes for the Clinton Foundation. These will go on and on, well beyond their lifespan. Yeah, and the Ford Foundation, I highly doubt that there's anyone even related to Henry Ford that even works there. And if there is, it just goes to show that, look, is if you are a rich person, because I think a lot of people, every time I get pushback about generational wealth, when I talk about generational wealth as a problem, you get these wannabe millionaire faggots that think that like, oh, if I play the game, then I can be a millionaire. And, they vote against their own interests and in the interest of millionaires because they believe this fucking American dream lie that somehow one day, if they work hard enough, then they'll be Mark Zuckerberg. And they'll always say the same things. Well, that's the motivation for me to work. I want to make sure my children are taken care of forever. And so if you take away this ability for me to pass on my wealth to my children, I'm not going to be motivated to do this anymore. And you'll be taking away an important component of the free market and all this other stuff. Well, you're not going to control how your children spend that money. And so in the case of the Ford Foundation, I'm not positive. I'm pretty sure that it's no longer even, tied to anyone genetically that, that's related to Ford. But let's say it was. Let's say the Ford Foundation is run by his great-great-grandson or something like that. He would be horrified. He would be mortified that exactly the thing that he fought against his entire life, his money was being used to promote. And that's what happens when you give unearned money to people. And so these people that are like, oh, I want to make sure that my children are taken care of. No, because there's a reason why we're living in a dysgenic period right now. Because that's not only is it bad for the reasons we've already discussed, it's positively dysgenic. Because now you're giving an enormous head start to your children. In some cases, a head start that is insurmountable. And it's regardless of how good they are, or how smart they are, or how capable they are. And so you're no longer in a meritocracy. You're no longer rewarding achievement. And especially this is true if you have the debt system that we have, so that anyone that is achieving still has to get the approval of the people that were just born with money. So even if you have like the good idea, like even if you're in your garage and you create this, maybe you discover free energy, somehow, or something crazy that's going to, help society forever. It doesn't matter because you still have to get one of these fucking billionaires that was born with the money to get on board. And if you try to go against them, they'll destroy you. They have the ability to destroy you. Look, it's happening right now in the marketplace of ideas. We are able to compete with these billionaires and their giant platforms that they use to spread their propaganda. We are able to neuter them using just a handful of computer parts, a microphone, an internet connection. We're able to neuter them. So, and part of it's because this dysgenic thing I was talking about, they haven't been responding to evolutionary pressures because they don't have any. They're like it's kind of like if you've ever grown plants in a greenhouse, and then you take them and put them in the full sunlight, they'll die because they're used to like these cushy conditions, this filtered light, no wind, no bitter cold, and then you put them outside, and now they're getting blasted by the sun and then freezing at night, and they fucking die. They can't handle it. That's exactly the same thing with these people. They haven't been subjected to the pressures of the outside. And so when they have to compete with someone that's where they grew out of a crack in the fucking driveway. They can survive with very little nourishment, very little interaction, very, very little nurturing. We're the weeds. And they got to use weed killer to get rid of us. Millionaires are fine, but it's covering the rest of your message. Acquiring billions is too much power. Well, that's the other thing that people will say. Well, then where do you draw the line? How much is too much? Look, you wouldn't have that problem without generational wealth. You would have some anomalies. Maybe every once in a while, some guy would go from the starting line to like having billions of dollars at the end of it. In that case, you know what? Fuck it. I'll settle for that. I'll let there be a billionaire anomaly every once in a while because he did earn it somehow. I would, because there'd be so few of them, it'd be you could then examine, like, well, how did this guy do it? Did he do it by exploiting the system? Is there a weakness in the system that we need to fix? I'm okay with people getting rich off their own work. I'm totally okay with that. If you earned it, go for it. But none of these stories you hear about, oh, it's rags to riches. No, it's not. Bill Gates wasn't just some nerdy kid that started Microsoft in his garage. No matter how many millions of dollars they spend on movies to tell you that. That's not true. And the same thing can be said about all these guys, like Mark Zuckerberg, Amazon. Oh, look, Amazon. It was started as this little tiny book company, and then it grew into this massive empire. And look, we already have monopoly laws. I'm not saying that we need to even have more monopoly laws. We already have them. Because in addition to generational wealth, we have these corporations that become these immortal beings. Microsoft will keep going well beyond Bill Gates after he's dead. IBM, GE, all these corporations. The reason they've been allowed and have been able to get, AT&T, all these companies, some of them have been around for over 100 years. But we already have laws. They broke up AT&T back in the 70s? And that's exactly what the Trump administration should have focused on. They said they were going to look into it. They should have broke up Alphabet. They should have broke up Apple, quite frankly. They should have broke up Facebook. We have monopolies now. And right now, everything that's happening right now is because if there weren't any monopolies, it wouldn't matter. Oh no, we're out of the Apple App Store. So we'll just go to this other app store. That doesn't exist because there's monopolies. Oh no, Google's banning our app. So what? We'll go to Frugal or whatever. Well, that doesn't exist because we have monopolies. Take a look at chat here. F droid. You're talking about the Motorola droid? I barely remember that. I remember when they made the phone. Motorola made a phone called Droid, and Lucas sued them because droid. I came up with that word, and he got millions for it. I forget how much, but it was a lot of money. What's next? What do we do? Well, like I said, I don't know what's next. No one's got a crystal ball, but you can at least determine what they want to have happen next, and you can kind of look at, well, is there anything that's in the way of that happening? And right now there's not. So you prepare for that. And again, there's no way to predict when. I've said this over and over and over again, I think last night. Communist takeovers happen exactly the same every time. Every time. There's no exception. Every single time they purge the people who are not compatible with their little utopian system. And you can already see them laying down the groundwork to be able to do this. Now, is it going to happen overnight? I don't know. Probably not. It's probably going to take some time. A lot of the stuff that they have to do prior to that is going to take some time. It might not. Look, it could slow down. They might feel like they're going too fast, and they might slow it down to where it might not even happen in your lifetime. I don't know. No one has a crystal ball. But you do know where this is headed. You don't know how fast, but you know at some point society is going to get to a place where they're trying to do the Great Reset or global climate, whatever you want to call it, right? We already know that. And in fact, I would say that in recent events have suggested to me that this is they've if anything they've sped up their plans. It looks to me as though they're speeding things up, and they're not even trying to hide it anymore because they have all the cards. They have all the cards. We had one card. We had the Trump card, and we thought that was good enough. Well, we got the Trump card. We're gonna win this. No, well, then you just found out that doesn't beat their hand. And now they've got more troops in Washington, D.C. than they have in Afghanistan. Over 10 times the number of troops that they have in Afghanistan are now in Washington, D.C. It's a show of force. They're showing you that if you have, if you have this guy, this great threat to their power. Dude.
Fucking A, man.
Fucking A, bro.
Good to see you guys. You guys are...
So they're showing you if you got this guy, like if that's how you're gonna if that's your insurrection, they're gonna respond with such crushing force, and while doing this, they're gonna they're showing you what they can do right now. They're convincing the public that this right here was an attempted coup by white nationalists. That this right here was an attempted coup by white nationalists. And that this right here justifies having 25 fucking thousand troops in D.C. They're rubbing it in your face. They're saying, you know what? Not only was your pathetic little, LARP fest super lame, but on top of that, we're going to convince the public that it was the worst thing that has happened since 9/11, which they said that. They said that. They said this is the worst thing that happened since 9/11, even though the Capitol had been fucking bombed by these same people. The same people saying that this was worse than 9/11 are the same people that literally bombed the Capitol in 1971, bombed the Capitol in 1983. The same fucking people, not the same kinds of people, the same people. And because they know that Americans have the memory of a goldfish, they can say, oh my God, the white nationalist uprising, it's the worst thing that has happened in this country since the fucking Civil War. It's the worst thing that's ever happened, ever. And they desecrated this holy house, these hallowed halls of the ruling class. They brought their filth and their stench into the halls where we make the magic happen. How dare they? And now we will respond with such force that you'll never even think about it again. Even though in 1971, they were setting off bombs. And in 1983, and by the way, both the people, so the guy in 1971, there was the Weather Underground, Bill Ayers, mentor to Barack Obama, who also is still politically active today and brainwashes college students at the college he works at. And then you have the woman, something Rosenberg, I think it was. I forget her name. It was, legit was. Oh, I have it here. Let's see here. Yep, Susan Rosenberg. I'll bring it up here for you. So we had Susan Rosenberg. And Bill Ayers literally attempting to blow up the Capitol. And in fact, they would have if they had the power, the ability to do it. It's not that they didn't want to, that their bombs were weak on purpose. They just, they just sucked at making bombs. It was their intention to blow up the Capitol. And she works for Black Lives Matter now. And those same people are telling you that, dude, fucking A, bro, I'm going to take a selfie guy, is the worst thing that's happened to this country since the Civil War, or since 9/11. Here's what the Capitol looked like after Susan Rosenberg's bomb. Kind of looks a little bit worse. Kind of looks a little bit worse than what the MAGA crowd did, huh? A little bit worse? So yeah, they're just rubbing it in your faces. They did a shit test to Trump during the summer of love, this last summer, when they were burning down cities. Tempting Trump. Go ahead. Try to use force to stop this. What are you going to do, pussy? What are you going to do? Fucking hit me. What are you going to do, pussy? Stop hitting yourself. Stop hitting yourself. And what did Trump do? Law and order. Law and order. And that's when they knew. Oh, fuck this guy. This guy's all talk. This guy's literally all talk. In fact, he's not even talk. He's just all tweet. He's all tweet from a secure location. From an undisclosed secure location. If our opponent is either too scared to use force, or maybe, look, they might have done the calculation. Like we're not the only ones that saw the videos of the guardsmen of the FBI kneeling before the BLM protesters. Maybe they did the calculation and realized if we deploy any kind of force against these BLM or Antifa guys, they're not going to be effective because they agree with the BLM people. They agree with the Antifa people. Trump did such a non-job of purging the agencies, something he should have done on day one. I mean, he still had 8 years of Obama hires working at all these agencies. And he didn't clean up a single one of them. The funniest thing, the thing that illustrates this the best was, I don't know if you guys remember, but just a couple of days after the election, and Trump was saying, that Bill Barr needs to look into election fraud. The DOJ needs to look into election fraud. The guy at the DOJ responsible for election fraud resigned. And the media made this big deal like, oh, holy shit, look at that. Trump's own DOJ. This guy resigned because he's just so disgusted with these false claims of election fraud, right? Well, you look into this guy's history, it turns out that he was hired by Eric Holder, Obama's AG. And not only was he hired by Eric Holder, he was involved with the scandal that didn't put anyone in jail over at the IRS when Lois Lerner was using the IRS to go after Tea Party groups. In fact, there were emails between, and I forget the guy's name, but it should be easy to find if you look for it online. Just look for, DOJ voter fraud resigns from like November. There are emails between him and Lois Lerner where they discuss not just using the IRS to fuck with these nonprofits and deny them nonprofit status and maybe even audit them or whatever, but he wanted to use the powers of the DOJ to put some of them in jail. And that's the guy Trump had trusted with voter fraud. That's how good of a president, when people get mad at me for saying that Trump was a shit president, fuck you. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about because you've been listening to some imaginary comic book character named Q for the last 4 goddamn years, and you don't live in reality. The reality is he was a shit president, and he couldn't even do the most basic shit. The most basic fucking shit. And that's either gross incompetence or he's in on it. So take your fucking pick. And now what's he doing? What's he doing now? He's rolling over. And he's handing over the keys to the White House to someone that either he's lying about being an usurper or that he believes is an usurper. Fuck him. Fuck Trump. Worst fucking president in modern history. Worst because he had the best chance to actually do something. Fuck, if the six demonstrated anything, it was the kind of political power he had. Because let's face it, this guy has lost support since 2016. He had a mandate. And he failed. Every part of it. Every part of it. And again, whether it was gross incompetence, gross negligence, or that he's a traitor. Take your pick. Pick which one you want. I don't care. It could be any of those. Someone said, let's see here. I don't want the USA. I just want to cleanse California. Well, good luck with that. California is a lost cause, which is a real shame. It's a beautiful state. Beautiful state. You drive up Highway 1, it's a beautiful fucking state. I agree with your point about monopolies, but DLive did not work out because they are a monopoly. Any thoughts on that? I don't know what you mean by that. It's not that DLive's not the monopoly. It's Google and Apple. And that's DLive booted people off their platform because they were afraid that Google and Apple would take their app out of the App Store. And which is probably what will happen to Trovo. You know, like if Trovo kicks us off, it'll be because of or either they're assholes over there. I don't know if they are. Maybe they are. Or it'll be because they don't want their app taken out of the App Store. Thoughts on distributed social networks? Are you talking about like decentralized, like blockchain social networks? I mean, I think stuff decentralized is the future because it directly addresses this problem, right? You can't have censorship on decentralized platforms. Now you can, but it's a lot harder, right? It wouldn't be done, like a company wouldn't be able to do it so much, but governments could just block it still anyway. I just heard of Trovo today. Well, I just heard of Trovo a few days ago, so you're not that far behind. Boomers want to be sedated. Nobody is making them sedated. Well, yeah, they grew up... I was watching... this is something I'm probably going to do a video on. There was this video called a movie called Same Time, This Time Next Year, or Same Time Next Year, something like that. The short version is... basically, this guy and this woman meet at a bed and breakfast somewhere and, instantly fall in love and have a one-night stand. And then the next morning, they're both married and they're both just there. Like, he's there for business. She's there for a retreat. And they don't want to, they feel like they're in love with each other, but they don't want to leave their spouses. So they decide... oh, well, we're just going to, how about this? We'll just, every year, we'll come and meet here at this same day every year, and we'll have a little weekend of sex, and we'll carry on with the rest of our lives like it's no big deal. This movie was made in the 70s, so it's very, very woke. And the language in it is just horrifying. Like, this isn't our fault. We didn't do anything wrong. It's not our fault. This is just love. Love is love. Very 70s fucking boomer retarded, like, logic, right? And it's supposed to be based in the past. Like, so the first year that they meet up, it's supposed to be, I think, in like the 40s. And then the last year, like, because the way that the movie goes is you watch like that first weekend, and then like time passes, like 5 years go by, and then they meet up again, and then 5 years go by, and then they meet up again, and 5 years go, and so you're getting like this snapshot of in fact, the way that the montage they play to show that time is passing, it's like all these historical photos in this like the Ken Burns kind of fade, zoom and fade sort of thing. And by the last one, it's like to modern day. And I think modern day, the movie came out like in 1978. So it's like that's modern day for that movie. And it's horrifying. It's horrifying. Because it was written by boomers for boomers. And it's how they viewed, in some ways, how they viewed their parents. And because these characters are supposed to be the age of their parents. And they're showing like this evolution from the way that their parents' culture was to the woke boomer culture. So for example, when they meet up in the late 60s, the woman has become a hippie. She's going to Berkeley, and she's all about free love and protesting the war. And the guy, he's very stuffy, and he's a fascist. In fact, that scene is particularly eye-opening because all the language that she uses against him is exactly the same language that the Antifa people use against us. Like, it hasn't changed. Like, it hasn't changed at all. In fact, I almost want to, maybe I'll play that scene. And she's like, "You're a fascist," because he voted for Goldwater. And eventually, he evolves. So then in a couple years, he's seen a psychiatrist. Psychiatrists are all the rage. Everyone has a psychiatrist. And they're using like this weird psychoanalyst language, all this lingo to describe their feelings, and they're all very in touch with it's so gross. Like, it's just fucking gross. And then a couple years later, they just keep getting more and more degenerate and more, their moral, like, they're already super degenerate, right, for what they're doing. But at least in the first meeting, they feel guilty, right? And by the last one, they don't feel guilty at all. They've totally justified what they're doing because it's love is love, and it's so gross. It's so gross. But let me, I just want to play just maybe that one part. Maybe I can find it here. Just because it was so funny to see, like, how they haven't changed at all. They really haven't changed. Yeah, okay, here we go. The soundtrack is also, it's like the worst fucking soundtrack I've ever heard in my life. Alright, so that's the... Oh, and then to make it worse, 1 year she's pregnant. Like, this is the year that she's pregnant. Like, 8 months pregnant. It's fucking, it's such an awful fucking... Ugh. Alright, this is where she's a hippie. Alright. Is this it? Alright. Let me see if this is it. I don't want to waste a bunch of time because I don't know if this is going to be
I always said Harry had a good head on his shoulders.
Easy to track down.
That was supposed to be the...
Alright, there she is with her... Oh, yeah, let me go a little forward.
And then I offered to have the rug clipped.
When did you get so stuffy and terrible?
Forward.
Like, oh yeah?
You.
Oh, I thought you'd never...
Alright, so after this, she says something about Goldwater, and that's when she'll start calling him a fascist. Here we go.
Doris, you're not wearing a bra.
George, you're so 40s.
I'm a very old-fashioned man.
Next, you'll be telling me you voted for Goldwater.
You did.
You're putting me on.
No, of course not. What are you doing?
Well, if you think I'm going to bed with any son of a bitch who voted for Goldwater, you're crazy.
Doris, don't do this to me. Not now.
How could you vote for a man like that? Yuck!
Can we discuss this later?
No, we'll discuss it right now. Why did you vote for him?
Because I have a son who wants to be a rock musician.
What kind of a reason is that?
The best one I can come up with in my condition.
Well, I'm sorry, George. You're going to have to do a whole lot better than that.
All right, he wanted to end the war, okay?
Oh, sure, by destroying the whole country.
He never said that. That's the trouble with you people. You never listen.
It's a civil war. We have no right being there in the first place.
Oh, I'm so sick of hearing that liberal crap. We have the bomb. Why don't we use it?
Are you serious?
You're damn right I am. Wipe the sons of bitches off the face of the earth.
Oh, my God, I don't know anything about you. What kind of a man are you?
Right now, a very frustrated one.
All this time, I thought I was going to bed with a liberal Democrat. Wait a minute. You told me you worked for Stevenson.
That was years ago.
So what happened? What changed you?
I grew up.
Oh, yeah? Well, as far as I'm concerned, you didn't turn out too hot.
Let's just forget it, huh?
Oh, I'm not going to forget it. I mean, being stuffy and old-fashioned is one thing, but being a fascist is another.
I am not a fascist.
Well, you're advocating mass murder.
Let's just drop it, Doris.
No, I'm not
let's just drop it.
to drop it. You stand for everything that I'm against.
Well, maybe you're against the wrong things.
But you used to believe exactly as I do. Now, what happened?
I changed.
But what?
Anyway, I'm not going to subject you guys to much more of that, but yeah, that's it's basically showing like the wokeness of the boomer crowd. Like they're so it's supposed to be kind of like a comedy because because she's an older woman, right, in this scene. And so, oh, look, it's like one of our moms who's become a hippie and she's now going to Berkeley and she's doing protests and she's doing the free love thing. She drives a Volkswagen and all this sort of stuff. And he's a fascist because he's voted for Goldwater, which, by the way, Goldwater was not going to just sit there and nuke Vietnam. Okay, that was another talking point of the left. Was just they did that with Reagan too. Like if you elect Reagan, he's going to start World War III with Russia. He's going to nuke World War III or nuke Russia, and you better be afraid of the bomb. So the left has never changed. The left has never changed. Politics destroys relationships. Well, it's because women are allowed to be political. I'm glad Hollywood is dying. They have infected people with propaganda for so long. Yep. VW converted to off-road dune buggies are awesome. Yes, they are. The dialogue is terrible. Yes, it was terrible. The acting's terrible. The movie is painful. In one of the videos you said something like, the greatest fuck you to the boomers ever, the greatest fuck you that boomers will ever do is when they die. I took it as saying once they're gone, whatever small stability we have will end. At that point, there is nothing to hold back what's coming. Well, it's that, and like they're not, the wealth won't transfer to their children. They're all spending it all. They're living it up. And in fact, I gotta find it because it's just a statistic that's I'd have to look. I'll find it some other time. But basically, the share of wealth that millennials have, for example, at this same time in history, or when the boomers were this age and this portion of the workforce, they had a majority of the wealth, and now they still have the majority of the wealth, and they make up a very small portion of the workforce. Leftist media is still bashing Trump daily. They are never going to stop. They'll stop eventually once he's out of office, just like they stopped with Bush. Bush was the boogeyman until they had a new boogeyman, and then it was oh, look at Bush. He's so sensitive. He's so sensitive, and he's doing all these charity things with Obama. And look, he's giving a piece of candy to Michelle Obama. Oh, it's how cute. How cute. And that's when you'll know if Trump, if it was gross negligence / incompetence, or if he was in on it. If there's ever a commercial for a nonprofit or an event where Trump shows up and he's hanging out with Obama, and they're both promoting the same thing and have their arms around each other and look, we all need to come together. If Trump ever participates in anything like that, you'll have your answer. You'll know exactly what Trump was all about from the beginning. Have you read or listened to Ted Kaczynski's take on the left? Spot on. I haven't. I feel bad for... I've started reading his manifesto a couple times, but I've never actually finished it. I definitely need to read that. Maybe Obama being a Muslim wasn't a bad thing. I don't think he was a Muslim. I think he was a Satanist. Like all these people are. Vox Day saying Trump's going to do a coup. Well, look. Vox Day is a fool. I'm just going to say it. He's a fool. He's a fool, and he's afraid. He's so invested here's the thing. He's so invested in the Q thing for a variety of reasons. And one of those is, like, look, he spent like a year celebrating, oh, I totally owned Indiegogo and forced them to let me have my QAnon comic book. And then he pushed the QAnon comic book, and he pushed QAnon, and, all the while telling people on a regular basis how smart he was and how they just don't see the world the way he does, and how they sound like retards when they talk, because the IQ difference is so vast that when they talk, it just sounds like jumbles of grunts, because he's just so big-brained that there's no possible way they could see the world as clearly as he does. And so this whole time he's pushing a literal Bolshevik psyop to the extent that he's augmenting it with comic books and making money off of the Bolshevik psyop. Think about that. Think about the kind of personality type that feels the need to constantly talk about how smart he is. To go and join Mensa, and then of course say, "Oh, I just joined Mensa to show people how Mensa's stupid." I mean, he reminds me of the kid that's always like, "I was just pretending to be retarded," and he can't let go of the Q thing, because it'll reveal that he was a fool, an utter fool, that didn't just promote a Bolshevik psyop, but made money on it. He will never be able to let it go. And if he ever does, he'll never apologize. No, he'll say, "Well, I always said it might not be true, but it was still good because it gave people," or some fucking retarded bullshit. And I've held back. Look, I've obviously indirectly jabbed at him over the years over this shit, because it's been so fucking obnoxious. Watching these people, these misguided morons. I mean, think of the crowd that would enjoy that kind of abuse, being told that oh no, you just don't understand. You're just so fucking stupid. You can't understand the world I am. Think of the type of person that would enjoy being spoken to that way. That's his fans. And watching him just mentally abuse these fucking people and make money off of them. It's disgusting. And like I said, I've held my tongue for a long time and tried to not just be like, "Look, bitch, you're a fool," but like, "Look, bitch, you're a fool. You're a fool." And everyone will know it on January 21st, and that scares you. And I know that scares you because you spend so much time telling people how you're not a fool. So that must be the scariest thing in the world. You broadcast your own personal hell when you do that. But yeah, it's look, I've known people like this, and it's frustrating, and look, it's a waste too, because he's a fool, but he's not dumb. He's not dumb, right? But in a way, like, it's almost like, see, here's the thing. The smarter you are, the more you know you're an idiot. So the last thing you're going to do is go around telling people how smart you are all the time. Because, like, the smarter you are, like, the smarter you get, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know shit. And I guess that scares some people. I don't know. It just seems like a waste. His talent, he has talent. He has talents that could be used for good. It's just, he's got like this fucking, I don't know, this fear of looking stupid, or whatever it is. This fear of being the fool. And ironically, that's what's directly led him to being a fool. Let's take a look here. Someone says, hubris claims many a man. That's exactly. That's exactly what it is. It is hubris. And you can tell that that's what eats at him. He, like I said, anyone can tell that, except for, I guess, his psychologically damaged fans that have, I don't know, which I honestly don't, I understand him to some extent, as much as you can, someone that you don't know maybe on a personal level, but I don't understand the fan base. I don't understand why that, I don't get it. Yeah, someone said, not dumb, but a fool. Yeah. I mean, for fuck's sake. I was watching one of his streams. I was hate watching one of his streams. And it was after, like, his dad got out of prison, and it was when he believed that the tent set up in Central Park were to attend to the children they were going to be saving from the underground pedo dungeons. And he said something about, like, yeah, my dad was really, because I guess his dad just got out of prison and he hadn't talked to him in a long time. And so he was like, yeah, my dad was really surprised and shocked when I told him about the underground pedo dungeons. And I was just like, fuck me, dude. Fuck me. Like, yeah. Oh, God. All right, here we go. I'm looking at chat here. I don't want to turn this into a look. I don't want to turn this into a I hate Vox, rant thing. I've said what I think, and it is what it is. Thoughts on Coach Red Pill? Yeah, I don't know him personally. I may have been on a stream with him once. He seems pretty okay, but the problem is he comes at it from kind of like, look, he kind of does a lot of the 48 laws of power kind of a thing where it's kind of sociopathic in a way. He gives the kind of advice that I probably would have given like a decade ago, looking at the world through like an atheist sociopath way. Like, and I'm not saying he's a sociopath, but like a lot of his logic is kind of that, where it's like just being so pragmatic to the point where it kind of takes the soul out of things. And it certainly takes the religion that I think he's probably an atheist. I don't know if he is. But at the same time, look, I don't think he's ever lying. I think he's calling it how he sees it. And that's my biggest thing, is people that lie to others or lie to themselves. That's what I can't tolerate. And he seems to be honest, and he does give good advice on certain topics. It's just, like I said, sometimes the advice that he gives, it's so pragmatic, and it's not wrong in a pragmatic way, but it's so pragmatic. I don't think it's going to lead to happiness for a lot of people. Sometimes. Let's see here. Yeah, so far like Trovo better, less clustered. That's good. Seems faster. CRP is not a Jew. He's Chilean. Yeah, he's Chilean. He seems to be able to admit when he's wrong, which is better than most. Yeah, no, he does that too. Like I said, I don't think he lies. And that's, to me, that means he's a good guy. I would probably really enjoy hanging out with him. He seems like a really good guy. And he doesn't lie. That's all I care about. Well, it's not all I care about, but that's a big... Because usually if you're bad in other ways, you also lie. So if you're not lying to yourself, you're not lying to me, hey, we can probably... you're probably a good guy. And if you can admit when you're wrong, that's, again, that goes, everyone who doesn't lie admits when they're wrong. Like me, if Q turns out to be real and everything pans out the way all these Q people have been saying, like if Vox Day ends up being correct, I will change like my branding to like a flaming Q, and I will turn into the biggest fucking Q-tard, and I will do entire streams where all I do is apologizing for ever having doubted Q. I'll do that. Let's see here. Q Rainbow. Well, I won't do I'll do a flaming Q. Maybe not like a flaming Q. Speaking of Boogeyman, look how leftists blame Reagan for the AIDS epidemic. Yeah, well, yeah, the left has never been honest. Do you even think Trump will pardon anybody? I have my doubts. Yeah, he's going to pardon about 100 people, and they're all going to be his friends. And they're going to be Jewish gangsters. Probably a lot of them are going to be those types. In fact, there's an article about it. I hope I can find this quickly. I don't want to sit here just staring, looking for a article forever, because things move so fast on Telegram and everywhere else. You have to really kind of scroll up sometimes to find what you're looking for. Let's see here. Maybe I'll just look it up here. I don't see it right off the top of my head. Trump pardon 100. No, that's not what I wanted. Here we go. So this is from the Washington Post, so, it is what it is. President Trump is preparing to pardon or commute the sentences of more than and now it's telling me I have to pay for it. Nope, not going to pay for it. Let me find another one. Trump plans to pardon or commute the sentences of over 100 people Tuesday, according to reports Sunday night. The actions are expected to include white-collar criminals and political allies, along with some reform-minded pardons, according to the reports. But CNN said Trump is not expected to pardon himself. Let's see here. Separately, the New York Times reported Sunday that some in Trump's circle have been monetizing pardons, with a former CIA officer convicted of illegally disclosing classified information reportedly being told a pardon could be had for $2 million. Look, this is coming from the New York Times, but I kind of believe it. CNN reported that Tuesday's batch of pardons are expected to be all that are coming, barring a last-minute change of heart in which Trump could break with the plan and pardon himself or family members. Advisors have warned Trump against pardoning himself because it would imply guilt, CNN reported, and have also recommended against clemency for any Capitol rioters. So yeah, he's probably not going to... I'd be very shocked. It'd be the decent thing to do, which is why I'd be very shocked. I'd be very shocked if Trump pardoned all the people from the 6th, which would be the decent thing to do. That's 100% what he should do. Let the Antifa... I guess there's a handful of Antifa guys, like that one guy, John Sullivan or whatever his name was. Leave them out to dry. They're probably not going to get the book thrown at them anyway. So, if you're going to be pardoning people like Paul Manafort, who's like a literal, he's like a war criminal. He really is. Paul Manafort's a terrible fucking person. And if you're going to pardon him, Paul Manafort did things that these Q people that went into the Capitol could only dream of. I mean, Paul Manafort is responsible for innocent lives being lost, and not just a couple. Look into his background. He's a terrible fucking person. Meanwhile, the Trump administration on Saturday carried out its 13th execution. See, now here's something that makes me a little bit uneasy, too. One of the last things Bill Barr did at the DOJ was make it real easy. And I remember people were saying, oh, that's based. He made it real easy to execute people. There was a lot of kind of hurdles that have been put in place by liberals to stop executions at the federal level. And they kind of created an express lane. And started, excuse me, I need a drink of water here. He started executing people in Well, in a very quick fashion. And also, he reenacted the firing squad. So, I had to clear my throat there. And that makes me a little bit nervous because why would you do that right at the end? Like it kind of makes me wonder why are they making this so streamlined right here at the end? They're making death penalties at the federal level really easy to do. And to give you an idea of the difference, they carried out the Saturday they did the 13th execution, and prior to that there had been no federal executions for 17 years. Now I think that's stupid. So hopefully it was just fixing something that was stupid. The fact that you had people that were already supposed to be getting the death penalty for the last, 2 decades that weren't getting it because of, liberal policies. Because a lot of these people probably deserve it. But at the same time, it does make me nervous that, he made it all super easy to execute people right before handing the keys to the White House over to a communist usurper. So that kind of, that's not exactly the best of news. If the right wins, what economic reforms can we use to bridge the middle class, super wealthy gap without coming off as communists with wealth redistribution? I don't know. Like I said before, I'm more the fire alarm and not the fire department that comes to put it out. I can tell you when there's a problem. I don't necessarily have the tools or the background to know how to fix it always. I can point out that where there's weaknesses, how I'm better at exploiting systems than I am at building systems. So if I see a system, I can see exactly the weak spot. That's where my brain goes. My brain goes straight to reverse engineering it. I guess that's the way to put it. Is I'm better at reverse engineering than I am at engineering. And so I don't know exactly. I can tell you the problem. Like whatever it is, it should be something that addresses that. It'll be impossible to do this without something significant happening. Let me put it that way. There's no political way you're going to get rid of generational wealth. That's something you would have to enact by force. But that's the biggest problem I see in the world, not just in the West, just in the world, is that you have, because wealth equals power, and because of usury, I guess that'd be one way. If you could get rid of usury somehow, maybe the generational wealth shit wouldn't be as damaging. Because, they could lend money, but they couldn't make any interest on it. And so they wouldn't be as much, it'd still be a problem, but it wouldn't be as much of a problem. Because these foundations, for example, the reason why if once your big ball of money is big enough, it'll never go away is because of interest. You can make interest. Now, there's other ways you can make money too, but it's easy to just make interest. You don't do anything. You just make interest. If your big ball of money is big enough to make enough interest to where it exceeds your expenses, you don't do anything for a living. You just make interest. And so if you got rid of usury, you couldn't do that anymore. You still have other problems, but I think that would be the simplest way. The simplest way to really do some damage to the ruling class and really raise up these lower classes. Because now you couldn't charge them interest. You couldn't put them in debt with these student loans where they're only borrowing, say, $50,000, but they end up having to pay $250,000 because of the interest on it, or a house. You buy a house for $250,000 and you end up spending $500,000 on it by the time everything's said and done because of all the interest. That would be the quickest way to solve a lot of problems. And you know what? We had a world without usury for a very long time. So it's not like it's unheard of. It's not like you can't do that. Why does POTUS have the ability to pardon anyone at all? It goes against the idea of separation of powers. I don't know. It just seems... they always have had that. POTUS is in control of the Justice Department. I don't know. I don't know the technical reason why he has it, but that's nothing new. Do you agree the Watergate scandal was largely overblown? It has become one giant boomer circle jerk. Yeah, well, compared to what Obama did with the FISA gate, Watergate was nothing. Watergate was nothing. FISA-gate, I mean, fuck me. That shit's insane. That's like Watergate times 1,000,000. And all the people that like to bring up Nixon and bring up Watergate had no problem with FISA-gate. The ruling class got rid of Nixon. I'm not sure why. But the ruling class had had enough of Nixon. And he did things that helped him out a lot, so I'm not sure why, but you can tell that that was a controlled demolition of his presidency. They wanted him out of there. So maybe he was good. You know, even though he took us off the gold standard and opened up China to trade and all that stuff, which is pretty bad, maybe there was something significant. He was holding back the dam, or it could have been just like a Trump thing where culturally he wasn't on the same page with them and they resented him. In the same way that you have people that, if they're alcoholics and you go to their party and you don't drink, they get really upset with you and start yelling at you. I think there's a lot of that in the ruling class. If you're like this guy who likes to go frolic around at Bohemian Grove and the president's calling it the faggiest thing he's ever seen in his life, they're just going to hate him. They're going to just hate him on a personal level. It could be something as simple as that. Because it holds a mirror up to their own degeneracy. And they can't stand the sight of that. 80s had interest rates at double digits. Yeah, no. Interest rates used to be insane. But there should just be no interest rates. There should be no usury. Make a normie-friendly montage of Trump failures on Telegram we can use to pill our normie friends on Facebook. There is one already. It's not on Telegram. There's one on YouTube. It's also on BitChute. It's called Art of the Schlemiel. Art of the Schlemiel. And it's just a montage of Trump saying one thing and then contradicting himself and then contradicting himself again and over. And it doesn't even include the last year. I made it in 2019, I think. But it's got enough stuff to where it's long. It's almost too long because it's just like, Jesus Christ, this fucking guy. And so, yeah, if you show him that, it's like by the end of it, you're just like, fuck me. Islam method of usury replacement, stock and business that receives the loan. I know that Islam doesn't allow usury, but they've got some workaround, and I don't know enough about it to know if it's just like a loophole that is still basically usury, or if it's actually good. Like when he said that he didn't know anything about Assange after he got elected. Exactly. Like that clip's not in there, that montage. But you can find that. People have made that montage just because it was so easy to do. He had, rally after rally where he kept talking about how much he loved WikiLeaks. And then immediately after getting elected said he didn't know anything about WikiLeaks. And there's someone that put that together. There's a lot. If you just put Trump, WikiLeaks into YouTube, or anything, you'll probably find that. Islam can do usury against us if it's in the name of converting us. Yeah, that's a loophole. I don't like loopholes. I don't like loopholes, and I don't like morality that is dependent on who you're dealing with. Because it's not European, and that's what ends up fucking us is because it's not European. We treat other people as if they're going to follow the same rules and the same moral compass that we have. And often we are shocked and surprised, often too late, when we realize that they have not been playing by the same rules. Ban usury and establish white Sharia law. I don't know, maybe something like that. Well, here's the thing. You wouldn't be able to get rid of usury unless you got rid of the usurers. Because they'll never let you do it. They'll never let you. Why would they? They'll never let you do it. They will never let you do it. And they control everything. And so there's no political way to get rid of usury. Zero. Catholicism bans usury under the Catholic Church. Usury was banned in Europe for nearly half a millennium. Yeah, but then they allowed it as soon as they needed to borrow some money from the Jews. Let's all go Amish. I might be taking it too far, but maybe not. Who knows? Take the Amish pill. Based Amish. Do you use any digital modes with your radio? No. My radios are not capable of digital modes. My radios have tubes and dials. And do nothing digital. Well, actually, let me take that back. I do have... I'll do a stream where I show this thing off because it's kind of hilarious. It's this big metal keyboard. And if you look on the inside, it's actually got an old... it's essentially like an old Intel 8088. That's before... It's like a 086. I'm sure if you know anything about older computers, they had 386, 486, and then 586, which was basically like the Pentium. Well, this is like a 086. And so it's got this really old-ass, IBM... It might be IBM or it might be Intel. I'm not sure which, but it's like an old AT motherboard in it. And it's from like really early 80s or maybe, no, it can't be 70s. It's got to be like really early 80s. But it's called the Robot. Let me find a picture of it. It's really fucking hilarious, this thing. And it works. That's the best part about it. Robot. And I love that it says robot on it real big. Let me see if I can show this thing to you guys. I'll do a stream. I'll hook it up because it has video out. I can even do like the video out into OBS because I've got a analog video capture card that I can do that with. This thing is hilarious though. Let's see here. Is that it? Oh, that's someone. That's one that someone's modified. Not a lot of pictures on the internet of this thing. Why can't I find it? I think it's called the Robot 300, maybe? This thing is... It's cool because it's got like the big... it's the... Oh, here's one. This is really kind of a shitty... Oh, that's the knockoff. That's not the actual one. Maybe eBay's got one for sale. Sometimes you can find these weird things on eBay. Robot Morse code keyboard. That's not the name of it. I just can't remember the name of it because I haven't used it in months. Anyway, it's this big fucking metal keyboard, and it's got a ROM on it. So and all that ROM does is it loads up a very, very, very simple like DOS looking app where it can do Morse code, encoding and decoding, and it can even do very limited SSTV. So it can do like ASCII art SSTV, which is kind of hilarious. So you can, if you guys don't know what that means, everyone knows what Morse code is, right? So if you type in a sentence on this keyboard, it looks like a DOS prompt. And then you hit enter, it'll beep out to your radio and do Morse code. And then you can hook up the speaker of your radio to the keyboard, and it'll decode somewhat accurately the Morse code coming in. And the SSTV stuff, SSTV is how you send pictures over ham radio. It's very low resolution, it's very, very slow, and it sounds like a fax machine when it's doing it. It's kind of doing the same thing that a fax machine does. And it'll send ASCII art SSTV, but it can't receive SSTV. It can only send stuff. But that's about as digital as my radio setup gets. Is early 80s digital. How would you handle loans for starting businesses without usury? Just require initial capital? No, I don't know. However we did it before. You could do that, or you could do ownership, right? Like, okay, I'll loan you the money, but I own part of your company. And then the person loaning you the money has an interest in your company succeeding. So there's nothing wrong with that. You could still sell shares in your company, I guess. I don't think that goes against usury, really. Back in the 90s, I hooked a police scanner up to my computer and was able to decode pager messages. Yeah, I remember when I was a kid, back in the old cell phone days, we found out that if you got your TV antenna and you put it like the bunny ears, and you put it sideways, and you turned the TV up to like the really high up channels, like the UHF like channel like 68 or something, like something that where there's never any actual TV channels, you would hear one side of a cell phone conversation because they would be on the same frequency of the UHF TV for some reason. So we would do that sometimes. We would put the bunny ear sideways, and my friend had an upstairs bedroom, so we had like good reception. And we would just tune around up on these upper channels, and then finally you'd hear like just one side of a conversation. It was really weird. Someone asked about proprietarianism. The problem with proprietarianism is that it would basically make religion illegal. That's a big problem right off the bat, right out of the gate. The other problem with proprietarianism is it relies very heavily on courts. And it assumes that the court would never be corrupted. And it's very litigious. And it just doesn't seem practical. Even if you had a very... In a lot of ways, it's like any other form of government that makes some assumptions about behavior that I just think are wrong about human behavior. But the biggest thing is it would make religion illegal because the big selling point, right, is it pretty much makes lying illegal, like in a lot of ways. But the way that it was, at least the way it was described to me, if you had a religion, like let's say it's the Catholic Church, and you've got a preacher talking about the Bible and then passing around the plate, asking for donations or whatever, you'd be able to sue him, and he'd have to prove that what he said was true in a court of law. And so it just like that already, I'm just like, yeah, that's dumb. You can't do that. And then the other problem with it is just the optics, right? Like everyone's talked about, what's his face, the proprietarianism guy. He's just very autistic and sucks at messaging and marketing. And unfortunately that's half the battle. That's more than half the battle, really. So even if it was like this awesome, perfect form of government, he'd have to find someone else to sell it, because he's not going to be able to sell it. And in some ways, you could say John Mark was kind of that guy, at least briefly. But even with John Mark, it was kind of like, it reminded me of like an infomercial a lot of times, like a lot of positive rhetoric and a lot of platitudes. But any time you asked them about it, like a detail, they would usually say like, well, I don't know, like we're still working on it. That's the other thing too, is they've never even released like, here's the final, like here's the white paper, here's how everything would work. And so it's not even like a fully developed form of government. So, I mean, look, maybe when it is someday, I'll look through it and I'll find the exploit, because that's what I do. Doolittle. So yeah, that's it. His name's Doolittle. It never made sense in the first place. Well, I mean, look, their heart was in the right place. They were attacking some of the right problems, and Doolittle's a smart guy. It's just that, again, I think that he's wrong about, and look, it's not hard. Like, if you just look at his tweets and stuff, you can tell the guy isn't he's not, I don't know how to put this other than he's just not, he doesn't seem to understand human nature in the same way that maybe a non-autistic guy would. And so I think that proprietarianism makes some assumptions about human nature that are just fundamentally wrong because of that. No, Kurt Doolittle's still around. He still tweets stuff every once in a while. John Mark got, according to him, I don't know if this is true, got a visit from the FBI and decided to call it quits. So he just closed up shop after that. Doolittle is a Fed. I don't think he's a Fed. I just think that he believes in what he's trying to push. It's just not, like I said, it's not a mature, complete ideology even yet. Did Q shenanigans push the Overton window right and force boomers and normies to recognize the JQ as a legitimate issue? No. did the exact opposite. It said that we're leaving Israel for last, which probably explains a lot about who might be behind Q in the first place. Q would never touch the Israel issue, and in fact, Q was telling us that we wanted to go to war with Iran. Q was pushing war with Iran. How did they figure out who John Mark was with the motorcycle helmet? Well, he was at that event. He was at public events. He was photographed. John Mark's Civil War video was way too optimistic. He made it sound like it would be an easy win. Exactly. And I talked to him about that and said that he was overestimating the amount of based people in the military, as something that we've now seen is 100% accurate, that is not a very based military these days. Red Breitbart never mentioned it. Israel, even in the spending bill crap, but lots of Q-tard stuff. Well, Breitbart was founded inside of Israel with the help of Israelis. Andrew Breitbart was the adopted son of Jews. So, I mean, look, it's you know, I don't know what else to say. That's the way it is. Yeah, all of these so-called, you know, right-wing outlets, when you dig even a little bit, you often find the same thing. Let's see here. I used to have a war dialer back in the 80s. It would call MCI and try to random numbers, and overnight would have like 10 working calling cards. That's pretty cool. It's like that movie, War Games, right? Where it would just war dial looking for BBSs until he got into the DOD. What do I think of Ye Old Hammer? I don't know what Ye Old Hammer is. 600 viewers tonight. That's 100 more than last stream. That's good. War dialers were cool. Yep. All right, guys. Well, I think I'm going to wrap things up. Looks like we're slowly building up some steam here on Trovo. And 2 more days. Look at the official countdown. The official countdown is 2 days, 6 hours, and 50 minutes. 2 days and 6 hours and 50 minutes left of Trump. And then we'll see how shit goes down. So, hope you guys all have a good afternoon, good morning, or good whatever. For Blackpilled, I am, of course, Devin Stack.
A felon, gangster, mafiotic, negroidic, the Black Frank Gelada, a gangster judge, therefore unprosecutable, the blackish, menial, negroidic in appearance and demeanor, felon, vicious, parroting puppet, ex-district attorney, Nassau County, and watch my Frankenstein eyesight television playback of this felonious, lowly, sodomistic display by the felon, sodomist Judge William Sullivan and his lowly felon slut wife during my trial in Nassau County.